What if I told you that Mary Poppins, one of Disney's most cheerful, comforting films, was born out of bitterness, control battles, and nearly 20 years of refusal? Today it feels timeless, gentle, almost magical. But behind the smiles, umbrellas and songs was a war of wills that nearly prevented the film from ever being made. This is the first half of 20 weird facts you don't know about Mary Poppins, and every one of them proves that magic is rarely simple. Fact number 1 begins with a rejection that lasted 2 decades. Author P.L. Travers hated the idea of Disney adapting her books. She distrusted animation, disliked sentimentality, and feared Hollywood would soften her sharp, mysterious character. Walt Disney personally promised her faithfulness, again and again, for nearly 20 years before she finally agreed, and even then, she didn't trust him. Here's why this matters. The film exists not because of agreement, but because of persistence. Fact number 2 reveals a creative betrayal. Travers demanded script approval and attended story meetings in Los Angeles. She openly criticized songs, animation, and dialogue. She hated the word pretty. She hated sentiment. And most of all, she hated the animated penguins. Disney smiled politely and ignored her. The version you love today is the version Travers tried desperately to stop. Fact number 3 uncovers a casting miracle. Julie Andrews was not Disney's first choice. Studio executives wanted a bigger box office name. Andrews was pregnant and relatively unknown in film. Walt Disney made a quiet decision to trust her anyway. That choice changed cinema history. Andrews later said the role arrived when she needed it most. Personally and professionally, sometimes timing isn't lucky, it's precise. Fact number 4 exposes a physical toll. The famous flying scenes were achieved using early wire work and blue screen technology. Andrews spent hours suspended in harnesses that bruised her ribs and cut circulation. Between takes, she was lowered carefully like fragile cargo. The floating grace you see on screen was achieved through discomfort and endurance. Magic, it turns out, weighs something. Fact number 5 dives into numbers. Mary Poppins cost over $6 million to make, an enormous sum for Disney at the time. The animation alone took years, blending live action with hand-drawn characters in ways never attempted at this scale. If the film had failed, it could have financially damaged the studio. Instead, it earned over $100 million worldwide, rescuing Disney's live-action reputation. Fact number 6 explores a hidden tension. At the film's premiere, P.L. Travers sat in the audience and cried. Not tears of joy, tears of anger. She begged Disney to remove the animated sequences afterward. He refused. That moment permanently fractured their relationship. The world saw wonder. The creator saw loss of control. Art often demands surrender, and not everyone can or give it. Fact number 7 pulls back the curtain on sound. The song "Let's Go Fly a Kite" was written as a structural solution, not just a melody. The filmmakers needed a musical reason for emotional reconciliation between father and children. The song repaired the story's spine. Music didn't decorate the film, it solved it. That's why it still works. Fact number 8 involves discipline. The child actors worked under strict schedules, limited hours, and heavy supervision. Emotional scenes were filmed early in the day, before fatigue set in. Walt Disney insisted on protecting them, not just legally, but psychologically. The warmth you feel isn't accidental. It was engineered through care. Fact number 9 hides in plain sight. Mary Poppins never explains who she is, where she's from, or where she goes. Disney resisted backstory. Mystery was preserved intentionally. In an industry obsessed with explanation, Restraint became power. The less you know, the more you believe. And finally, fact number 10. The ultimate irony. Julie Andrews won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Mary Poppins, beating Audrey Hepburn, the woman who replaced her in My Fair Lady. Disney later sent Andrews a congratulatory telegram reading, "You deserved it." One decision closed one door and opened an immortal one. 10 facts revealed, 10 still waiting. In the second half, the secrets grow deeper, about legacy, resentment, technical breakthroughs, and why Mary Poppins still feels necessary decades later. Which fact surprised you the most? If the first 10 facts revealed how hard it was to create the magic of Mary Poppins, the final 10 show what that magic cost and why it refuses to fade. Fact 11 begins with something almost invisible: editing. The film runs just under 2.5 hours, but early cuts were much longer. Entire songs and scenes were removed to protect pacing. Walt Disney personally oversaw these decisions, believing that joy must never linger too long. The film's lightness is the result of restraint, not excess. Fact 12 uncovers a technical leap. The rooftop dance sequence required hundreds of hand-drawn animation frames layered perfectly over live-action footage. Animators worked frame by frame for months. One misalignment ruined hours of labor. The process was so demanding that it pushed Disney's animation department to the edge, yet it became a benchmark studied for decades. Fact 13 explores performance pressure. Dick Van Dyke's accent was intended to sound authentic Cockney. Instead, it became infamous. Van Dyke worked with a dialect coach, practiced relentlessly, and still missed the mark. Yet audiences forgave it. Why? Because sincerity outweighed precision. The lesson is simple. Heart can survive mistakes. Fact 14 touches on a quiet theme. Beneath the fantasy, the film is about parental absence and reconnection. Mr. Banks isn't a villain. He's distracted. The story doesn't punish him. It redeems him. For many viewers, especially older ones, that message deepens with time. Children see magic. Adults see regret and repair. Fact 15 reveals a subtle rebellion. Mary Poppins doesn't stay. She doesn't settle down. She doesn't explain herself. In 1964, this was radical. A woman who arrives, fixes a family, and leaves on her own terms quietly challenged expectations. Independence wrapped in politeness. Fact 16 looks at cultural endurance. The film has been re-released multiple times, restored, remastered, and broadcast globally for generations. Adjusted for inflation, it remains one of Disney's most profitable films. Longevity like this isn't accidental. It's emotional architecture built to last. Fact 17 brings us to Walt Disney himself. Mary Poppins was one of the last films he personally shepherded from start to finish. He saw it as proof that live action and animation could coexist. In many ways, it was a summary of his philosophy, imagination guided by discipline. Fact 18 revisits P.L. Travers. Years later, she admitted the film had touched millions, but she never fully accepted it. Control mattered more to her than applause. The story reminds us that creators and audiences don't always want the same thing, and both can be right. Fact 19 speaks to memory. For many viewers, Mary Poppins isn't just a movie. It's a moment, a living room, a parent humming along, a sense of safety. Films like this don't age. They wait. And finally, fact 20. The quiet truth beneath the umbrella. Mary Poppins endures because it balances discipline and delight, order and wonder, responsibility and joy. It doesn't tell us to escape life, but to return to it changed. So here's the final question for you. What if the magic you remember isn't nostalgia, but recognition? Which of these secrets stayed with you the longest?